Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to our series Pagan Problems. This week we are talking about creating a future, particularly creating a future for paganism so that our traditions and everything that we've built up to this point can continue to go on. And when I was creating the outline for this, I wrote down three main points and then I realized I just want to talk about this. I don't want this to be super structured and it's not going to be super in-depth, so I promise I won't ramble further. I want to talk a little bit more off the cuff and from the heart. So let me talk about what I think are two problems that really get in our way, and the begin is about the past, specifically an obsession with the past. Now, before you panic, let me reassure you, I'm not saying that we should not learn our history. I'm not saying that we should not learn about traditions that have existed in previous years. Those are the various things that we are trying to resurrect. And even if we aren't resurrecting, a word by word, action by action ritual that would have taken place in ancient times, we are looking into ancient ideas and ancient principles and thinking about how we can bring that forward in a religious and a spiritual context for our modern age. And that's right, and that's correct, and that is the goal of a pagan revival. That is what we are all trying to do. So this is not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about an obsession with the past. What I'm talking about is the endless gathering of knowledge but not taking that next step to figure out how we can apply it in our present day. Because learning history, it isn't about dates and this battle was fought then and, so and so was born now and then died at this year and this is what happened. This is not about just facts. This is about figuring out who our ancestors were. What did the gods mean to them? What did these stories mean to them? As much as what we're able to discern, because we are dealing with a lack of information. But simply accumulating that information does not actually form a pagan practice. An academic can do that. Plenty of them do. There are lots of professors who specialize in areas of history that were during the pagan era, and they can tell us a great deal, and they've learned a lot. But that doesn't make them pagan. It doesn't mean that they have a relationship with these deities. It doesn't mean that they're seeing the spiritual value in some of these ideas. Now, those of us who are pagans, we do. So we are needing to make that jump between simply being able to gather this information and then regurgitate it, and actually figuring out, what do we do? What does this mean for us? And getting something that's more than just the sum of the data gathering. So I think that's one thing that we do need to leave behind. We shouldn't be trying to impress each other and say, well, so-and-so was able to talk for 3 hours about this one detail in the mid-700s and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what we're needing. That's not going to actually bring us spiritual depth. If someone said, I was learning of the story, it was at the latter period of the pagan age, and this is what this person went through, and it got me thinking about that and how bravely they faced the challenges, and how did they survive, or did they die with honor, and all this and that. Those are the conversations. The what does it mean, and how can we use this? How can this inspire us? That is what we are needing. Now, that being said, this brings me to what I consider to be problem number 2, and it's this being locked in the present and not being able to see anything outside of it. Now you might think, well, you were just complaining, Brigantia, about people not thinking about how we can use things in the present. And yes, I was. But it is just as dangerous to make ourselves so atomized that we're just think, oh, well, paganism, all I really have to think about is what it means to me in this moment. I don't need to think about the past. I don't have to worry about creating a legacy for the future. It's just me. It's all about me. Me. Do you see where I'm going now? Because whether we're talking about paganism or a people who have successive generations in a particular civilization or what have you, we are all links in the chain, even if we don't have children ourselves, because I don't. But the reality is that I am part of a generation, and that generation did have children, and those children are going to go on to the future and have their own children, and so humanity will continue on. So even though we may not, as individuals, be passing on these things, are we passing information on in a more societal kind of way? For instance, with the work with Video, that is an attempt to create some kind of legacy, some kind of record of what were pagans doing in the here and now. Here's one example of one particular pagan. This is what she was concerned with. This is what she talked about. This is what she did. These were the ideas that she was advocating for. And then, someone further on down the line can pick that up. It's like, okay, that was a good idea. That was total rubbish. Oh, that one didn't age well at all. But this was a good idea. And then they have something and they can carry it with them. And that, in addition with what they are taught by other people, whether face to face or through a book or, in video or what have you, they are able to continue on and build upon paganism, and they can go on with it. And that's what I mean when we're talking about we get so locked in the present. The other danger is being so locked in the present that we're so busy thinking about what something means to us in the here and now that we utterly forget what it meant to our ancestors. And it's hard to be balanced on this because I think our ancestors knew a lot of things that we didn't, but we also know things that they could never have conceived of. And they're also we are looking at the stories and these gods from a very different vantage point. And so I think it's good to take both what was and what is, and take it together and see what we can really make out of that, because I don't think it's a question of choosing either or. And I might get rocks thrown at me for this, but oh well. If you can throw a rock through your computer screen and through mine to where it actually gets me, that is amazing, and I guess I'll take my licks. But here's what you might want to throw rocks at me for. Our ancestors didn't necessarily get everything right. And I realize that it's very difficult to hear. It's very difficult for me to say, especially since we see so much value in what was, and we are trying to bring that which was valuable back. But they were human, therefore, by definition, they got some things wrong. And I'm not saying that our modern ideas have, excuse me, I'm not saying that our modern ideas has superseded necessarily what our ancestors understood, but maybe we have gleaned something that they didn't. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So this brings me to, what about moving forward and looking forward? Because we live in a very short-sighted, never thinking beyond the next 5 minutes, what's the most expedient thing, what's in my short-term interest kind of society. And well, that's not how you create a legacy. Not for a community, not for a nation, not for a family, not for a religion. It's just not the way that it works. So let's think about, what is it that people need? People need to have some framework with which to view the universe, and that needs to be based in reality. There needs to be things they can observe in day-to-day life that correlate with these larger philosophical and theological ideas in order for it to have value to them. We know people need that. People need to have an understanding that there are layers to reality, and that's simply what we see on the surface with the physical world. It doesn't tell the whole story. We know ourselves that we are more than just our flesh. We need to be able to teach people and point out to them examples of how we come to know that. How do we know that these various things we find in nature, whether it's a plant or a rock or an animal, about how do we know that it means something more than just what the thing is in and of itself? Being able to teach that kind of mindset, that's something that people will need going forward. And also, people need simple things, everyday kind of things. How do I get along with people? How can I improve my marriage? How do I raise my children? What happens after I die? How should I honor the past? How do I sort out difficulties in my societies? People need examples of that, and especially when times get hard, because that's when people really start rediscovering, oh, religion and spirituality has a purpose. It's for this kind of rough stuff. It's for the questions that science can't answer. It's for the questions that are not going to be satisfied by whatever political paradigm happens to exist at any point in history. That this is the big stuff that religion and philosophy is for. And people need it. And so if we focus on efforts on creating communities and creating practices that answer these questions, or I shouldn't say an answer necessarily, but address these questions, have an exploration of thought. If we start leaving that behind, maybe, just maybe, we will be laying a more solid foundation for future pagans to take as they go on their own journeys and hopefully add on to what we've built. But the main thing is not to let the side down, not to get too lost in the past and all the various details without figuring out how to do something useful with it, and not getting so atomized in the present that we don't think beyond the end of our own nose. And of course, we shouldn't be so lost about the future because we don't necessarily know everything that people are going to need. But if we think about things that every generation of human beings need, we need to have purpose. We need to figure out how to live in an effective way. We need to figure out how to pursue our goals, and we need to figure out how we can reach out and try to connect with the divine. If we focus on those things, then we'll be in a position to where we are building something that is going to last through multiple generations, hopefully. So those are my thoughts, and I'm sorry if it was a bit rambly, but again, there are times when I just feel like I want to talk, and this was one of them. So if you have your own thoughts, please feel free to share them in the comments or to come see me at Blackbird's Brew. That's my Discord group. There's a link to join in the description box below. It's super simple. You can use it on your laptop or your tablet or your phone, whatever device, suits you, it can be used there. And in the meantime, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.